Howdy, howdy. We are live on a Friday night with the first ever Star Trek made for streaming movie to talk about. We've had a week to marinate on this and think about it and gather our thoughts, and now Joel and I are ready to unleash our deep dive discussion on it. And I see there's already several people chatting away in the audience. So, Joel, I think it's time to get this show started.
Okay.
I'm Fatheree.
And I'm Joel.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 316th installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we take a deep look at Star Trek, old and new. And tonight, we are talking about Star Trek Section 31, the made-for-streaming movie available now on Paramount+, written by Craig Sweeny, a story by Bo-Yeon Kim and Erica Lapolte, directed by Olatunde, Osunsanmi, and this movie has been quite the talking point for the. We're a little late to the party, Joel and I. We're it's a week after it came out when we're doing the live show tonight, but
yeah, going to STSF, delayed us. But it was worth it. So.
Yeah, and thankfully, Rachel, who I see is in the live chat now, along with Chris Garris and some others, were available to do the first reaction stream last week. Oh, I see the Yum Yum podcast is here in the live audience, so you know how appropriate. This movie is kind of like the. I heard someone call it like, oh, it's like the Yum Yum movie. Anthony Rapp said that when he was at the red carpet premiere of Section 31 in New York. He's like, oh, I haven't seen this yet. I'm ready for it. I want to see some yum yum. So referencing Georgiou and his show in Discovery. But there's a lot to say about this. I have a lot to say about this.
Yeah. We did start a week ago at STSF. It was about 11:30. We looked around and went like, did the movie drop? And then we could talk about it out loud. Because before it was hushed tones.
Yeah, well, it was classified. You know,
how it was classified.
But... before we dive into this, just a little bit of quick housekeeping. Per usual, I need to give a huge shout out to the wonderful Tex-Trek Patreon supporters who make the show possible. So, thank you so very much. Starfleet Sohel, Cake is Eternal, Crazy Dutchie, Joanne Robertson, John Daw, Geek Filter, Quark Spar, Stephanie Durantes, Matthew Averett, Braxton, Chuck A, Joel Vallis, Ben Ginium, Arthur Lamoureux, our associate producer, Chris Garris, Dave Farabee, and our anonymous supporters. And just to remind everyone, we do celebrate with our patrons monthly with sometimes more than just once a month, but we like to have watch parties at least once a month, and the next one scheduled is February 15th. We're going to be watching Star Trek Picard Season 3, Episode 1, The Next Generation. So, yep. Looking forward to revisiting that, and just to remind people that if you are a Bridge Crew level patron or higher, you can select watch parties for your birthday. So if anyone is at that tier, please let me know. Shoot me a message in the Discord if you have a birthday in February, because I might not have it on record. But just the way that we're going to change these up in 2025 is that we're going to do additional stream. We're going to continue to do the monthly watch party for the patrons that'll be exclusive to patrons. But if you're a bridge crew or higher level patron and you have a birthday in that month, we're going to do that as like an additional stream that will be available in the Discord server in a different location.
Secret location?
Well, no, it'll be
Okay.
public knowledge, but basically, just if there's like multiple birthdays in a month, we'll still do like our monthly party for that month,
Yep.
but then it'll just be more watch parties. So the more people who can support at that level, the more excuses we'll have to get together and watch Star Trek together.
Sounds good.
But yeah, thank you everyone who has been supporting the show. It definitely makes this a lot easier, allows us to do a lot more. And I am very grateful for our patrons supporting. And just to remind everyone that we've done a lot of Section 31 coverage this month in January, and that's coming to an end. We're not doing a show next week, although I might do some viewing of something in the Discord. We might do something in the Watch with Fatheree channel. I haven't used that in about a year, so maybe time to dust that off and bring it back. But I'm actually this next week I'm trying to move in with Miss Taylor, and in 2 weeks on Valentine's Day, February 14th. We are going to do a Tex-Trek Valentine's Day special podcast episode talking about the romances of the various Star Trek shows. So no show next week. Might do something in the Discord Friday night for the audience that likes to tune in live on Fridays. Maybe we'll do some watching in the Discord. But come back in 2 weeks for our Valentine's Day special show. I'm looking forward to that. So. By the way, I should say that Miss Taylor has now seen all of Star Trek. She's completed the entire franchise. Only took her 12 months, so
there you go.
Round of applause for her. That's a hell of an accomplishment. And we're gonna do some more shows in February with her talking about her experience with. We're gonna do one just talking about wrapping up the Berman era of Star Trek. When we had her on the show previously, she had only seen up until some of the Berman era stuff, but hadn't finished all of it. So she's now completed Voyager and DS9 and Enterprise. So she has thoughts about all of those she wasn't able to share before. And then we're also gonna do a show in February talking about modern Star Trek and what it was like watching like all of that, very, very condensed, just within like a couple of months. So Jill's asking if she liked Prodigy, and I shouldn't answer that. I should just be like, oh, we'll have to wait until February. So but yeah, so really looking forward to that content in February. And then who knows what we're doing in March. At some point, Dave says he wants to come back and talk about Enterprise Season 2.
We've been waiting, yeah.
At some point this year, we're going to get a season of Strange New Worlds to talk about. I'm thinking that's going to be late spring or early summer.
But yeah, still up in the air, though.
A Voyager documentary, though, that'll be out at some point this year. We've been waiting on it for 5 years, but...
very exciting.
So there will be more stuff in the future, but for February, it's going to be a lot of Taylor content. So if you like when my partner Taylor was on the show, if you followed hashtag Taylor's Star Trek Mission and like her reactions, then you're in luck. Otherwise, well, there will be more stuff down the road later in the year. But with all that out of the way, we do have this made-for-streaming movie to talk about. So
Indeed.
It's a little bit of a different format because we have an hour and a half to comb over instead of just an hour long for our typical episode deep dive discussions. But we're gonna follow a very similar format. Not gonna have time for Gorn eggs or subspace transmissions at the end, but I'm going to do the traditional synopsis recap. So I'm going to read the official synopsis and then kind of expand on that with spoilers to recap the story. But the official synopsis for Star Trek Section 31 reads, Emperor Philippa Georgiou joins a secret division of Starfleet tasked with protecting the United Federation of Planets. She must also face the sins of her past. So doesn't give much away there. But basically, we pick up with Georgiou post Discovery Season 3 when Carl, the Guardian of Forever, sent her back in time. And we see that she is running a bar slash hotel slash club space station. And she is recruited by Section 31 when a weapon that she actually had commissioned in the Terran Empire in the Mirror Universe in her past, in her terrible past, she's trying to escape. But it is being sold, and it turns out it's going to be a devastational thing to an entire quadrant. They said it could like wipe out like a quadrant. So
yeah,
we got
is this
more of those
TOS
big
quadrants
stakes.
or galactic quadrants? I'm thinking
Oh,
TOS
are they talking about like
quadrants.
sectors? They're not
I
going to
don't
say
know,
quadrant
'cause-
when they meant sectors, but
Because if they meant like the Alpha Quadrant, it wasn't quite. They didn't quite sell that. It's
But,
huge. They said quadrillions, but that doesn't mean. I was kind of confused by that, but you know, the MacGuffin's always confusing about what it does. Though in this case, I wrote down this is definitely a Fabergé MacGuffin. It is so shiny and bright, it's so nice.
But it was also in the hands of her, I guess, past slave, but before that, love interest, San, who she mentioned when she was having flashbacks in
Yes.
Disco Season 3.
I
He's
noticed
going
that.
he's going to use it to destroy a bunch of planets and then weaken the Prime universe for a Terran invasion, and then rule as the Terran Emperor. And she has to stop him with some wacky Section 31 characters.
That's right.
And we end with Georgiou and Rachel Garrett on this team of misfits. So Joel and I have some different opinions on this movie, but just a heads up. I'm expecting like the people who do there are people out there who do really enjoy this, and they're probably going to get mad at me for complaining about it. And there's also going to be people who hate this who get mad at me when I compliment anything that I think it did well. But I'm gonna have a lot to say I know I keep saying that I have a lot to say on this, but. Joel, I'll let you go ahead and give like the first opening statement before we get into the movie breakdown and start going through beat by beat, discussing it. Just what were your broad impressions of the movie?
Yeah, I liked it. I don't love it. It's not, Star Trek 2 or whatever, but I think I like it better than Insurrection, honestly. And it does what it says on the tin, which is what I really don't see. A lot of the complaints are about like, oh, it did this, it wasn't Starfleet, there wasn't a named ship. But they told us that a long time ago going in, that's what it would be. It wasn't going to focus on Starfleet. It would be other people in the Federation, except Section 31, which, we weren't sure about. And then the Section 31 parts are fine. Because, you watch our other show, we were worried it was going to be Section 31, and your job would be to go to planets and assassinate all the rulers and do like terrible CIA things. And they don't really do that. It's kind of a standard action movie plot with action movie MacGuffin that'll blow stuff up. And so no, it's not Citizen Kane, but it is people saying this is the worst movie they've ever seen. I have so many movies to show them. I have seen Robot Holocaust on MST3K. This is nowhere. Yes, Jill's right. Yeah, I watch the bad movies, so you don't have to. And I assure you, there are such worse sci-fi movies. And I think there's at least one worse Star Trek movie. And even I still like that. There's no Star Trek movie I dislike. So, yeah. And overall, I think it's actually, I don't know if I haven't watched any of the other reviews. I've been avoiding everything almost. And a few snuck by, but mostly it's just kind of a pastiche of action and sci-fi movies like Star Wars was. It's a big mashup of Mission Impossible, all that stuff, Guardians, we got the whole wacky team, but they ended up throwing in stuff like The Princess Bride is in there, the Hellraiser, because the thing looks just like the Lament configuration, except much, much shinier. And overall, I would compare this most to Valerian and the City of a Thousand Planets, except it's good. Because Valerian and the City of the Planets it's by the same guy who did The Fifth Element. I think that's...
Oh, I do know it. Yeah, I remember that, but I didn't see it, but I remember the trailers.
It's a legitimately awesome movie.
Yeah.
But Valerian looks even better, but the plot is just it's boring. It doesn't go anywhere. It's just set piece after set. It's very boring. This is not the greatest thing ever, but it's way better than that. And we get, Robot Vulcan too. That's fun. Who doesn't want a Robot Vulcan?
Well,
there's someone in the chat doesn't want a Robot Vulcan, but you still get one. Everyone does.
Although I will say, Joel, like even though they warned people ahead of time that it is going to be, outside the Federation and away from Starfleet, I still think it is fair for people to say, like, well, I don't like that.
And I have one more genius thought I thought of my last rewatch today. This is the first Star Trek movie since Nemesis that doesn't have the Beastie Boys. And for that alone, we need to give it credit.
Yeah, but they did throw in some other not even 20th century.
Yes,
I guess it's 21st century music.
It wasn't the Beastie Boys. They widened it out, so I wasn't mad.
Yeah. For me, on my side of things, my biggest observations of this movie is that it clearly, and like they told us in the marketing, it wasn't, they didn't show us any Starfleet uniforms in the marketing because like there weren't any, so they never promised it was going to connect much to Star Trek, and it didn't want to bother with being very Star Trek, but I think the biggest sin of it is it also didn't bother being anything fresh or new either. In my opinion, it was, if you just look at it as like none of the Star Trek attachment to it, just look at it on its own as a story in a visual medium, I found it very meh, like Georgiou says, and when they have like their little meeting on the ship, when she says meh to their plan, I think it was just like a meh generic sci-fi void of much substance with kind of a standard paint by number plot and paint by number designs and looks to things, a bland story with kind of a bland antagonist, like, looks like something that could have been like a made for sci-fi channel movie, 20, 30 years ago when they were doing that. And I typically wouldn't be too upset about that. However, in my opinion, it was too thoughtless to be Star Trek. I thought this was kind of more, it was more popcorn fluff, just turn your brain off and enjoy the ride. I thought it was more less substance than any of the Kelvin movies, which I enjoy those. I've called them the popcorn Trek. They're the popcorn Star Trek. And I would have hoped for something more from an Academy Award-winning actor. I think she had like some good moments. She definitely has like the best performance overall. She has a lot of presence, and Michelle Yeoh can do a lot with just like a close up of her face. She can do like a shitload of heavy lifting, but I still think it was a kind of a waste of her talent. And it could have done some interesting stuff with Section 31 and the Lost Era, but like we were saying, it never really tries to explore 31 or explore this time period of the Star Trek timeline. I don't like what it did with Georgiou though. Like I think just looking at it now from like a Star Trek fan perspective, who is like a fan of these characters, I think it undid some of the Georgiou development that we got in season 3. She went through this, what I consider was like actually an adequate redemption arc in Discovery season 3, where you see her go back in time in the mirror universe and basically like look at herself as like, oh no, this was terrible. And if I had this all to do over again, I totally wouldn't do it. I reject this person that I used to be. And then Carl, the Guardian of Forever, sends her back in time to like, he says, I'm going to send you somewhere where you can be good and make a difference. And I was like, cool. So Georgiou kind of has like this mission now. And, but I guess like she was just going to go back in time and, run a club and like live this life of, fun and partying and debauchery. And it's like, that really made me disappointed in the character of Georgiou. I didn't like that being the follow-up to what we saw in season 3. I wish that they had shown her, maybe like she was like using this club as like a front to like help, transport refugees or, something like that. I thought that she would have been more proactive to try to do something good in the universe based on where we dropped her off in Disco season 3. So that kind of disappointed me. I don't like what it did with Georgiou. I don't like what it did with Rachel Garrett. I think they kind of squandered that opportunity. It didn't really give us anything, but the things that it used, like the Deltons or the Cameloids, it kind of made me, it just little things, but it didn't add as much as it kind of it took away. I didn't like the way it handled them. But it didn't break anything. So, like, the trailers and marketing were very honest. They never gave me much to be excited about. And I looked into this, kind of thinking like, well, unfortunately, this looks like, Star Trek doing Black Ops. And I think that it's not going to be for me. So I never got super excited about it. I was kind of prepared for this to be my least favorite Star Trek show or movie. And I mainly watched it worried about it having an impact on the continuity of Star Trek or on like the moral ethos of Trek. And I'm relieved that I can excuse everything or most everything that happens here. It doesn't break anything. So it's still a great example of what I don't want with Section 31. I've said this on the show before, but I like them to at least be presented as bad guys like they were in Deep Space Nine, like they were in Star Trek Into Darkness, like they were in Disco Season 2, and preferably I don't want them to be sanctioned by Starfleet. So, that bothers me. That's still like not a use of Section 31 that I want. But there are some moments and ideas that I do want to compliment in this movie as we get to them. There's also some dumb, lazy things I want to complain about. So stick around. It's going to be a bit of a roller coaster, but yeah, like I don't have a lot in this movie to like, but also like I don't have a lot in here to hate. It was kind of harmless. But so with that comment, I'm sure like I've upset like everyone regardless of their feelings on this. But Joel, let's go ahead and move into our episode, or not our episode breakdown, our movie breakdown.
Yes.
So starting off, we open with some fun studio logo stuff. We get
I like this. This was classy.
The mirror Paramount logo, the mirror Star Trek logo. But that made me laugh because it says Kurtratz when you have Star Trek spelled backwards, like our friend Dan Gunther's Kurtratz Productions channel.
Kurtratz, yep.
But we get the quote, the fate who makes the sword does the forging in advance. Were you familiar with this quote?
No, I wasn't. I'd heard of I had to look this up. Achille, who's like he wrote plays. He's the
father of
Greek
tragedy.
Yeah, Greek tragedy. And if it's your father of tragedy, Greek tragedy is the big one. So, yeah, I don't think his plays they're very historically important, but they're not the ones that people really read a lot, I think, who aren't in Greek studies. But I do like the quote. It's cool.
The full quote is the anvil of justice is planted firm, and fate who makes the sword does the forging in advance. So it's actually like a quote about an anvil, and then we cut from that to the Terran Empire and Georgiou's dad hammering on an anvil, literally forging a sword.
Yes. I do like the weird, if you go back one image where it says the Terran Empire, and it's not just on the screen, but it looks like it's in the actual environment. You even get the reflection in the water. They kind of keep doing that, and I like that. It's different for Star Trek.
Yeah, I don't know if the stylized title card, or not title card, but the stylized like location thing.
Yeah.
It's kind of weird. Like they only do it like that one time. I kind of thought like, oh, this is going to be a device they use.
They
like,
don't keep doing it, but it was expensive to.
But we meet a teenager Georgiou, and these are events that they talk about that they kind of reference in Discovery. Her killing her parents or killing her mom. Something that came up before. So we actually like see that here. And apparently at some point in the Terran Empire, the Emperor is selected through like the Terran Empire Hunger Games where they make teenagers fight to the death.
Yeah, I like that they're doing this heavy in-depth world building for the Terran Empire about stuff. But yeah, I'm not sure that makes any sense. But or if it does make sense, why are they plotting against her later? Why not just be like, it's time for another games. We're sick of you. We want another kid.
From like the Star Trek like continuity perspective, this would probably be around the time that Hoshi from Enterprise, who we know became Emperor in the Mirror Universe, she would be in like her 80s or 90s. So I guess this might be like around like the death of Hoshi. Maybe to find her replacement, they have the the Terran Empire Hunger Games.
Yeah, I was reading that this was all shot in a quarry in Canada, and these exterior shots, and it looks pretty amazing for just being a regular old quarry. It doesn't look, like
Well, they shoot there a lot.
dodgy Doctor Who. I don't think it was the regular one. I think there was a different one.
Oh, they went to a different rock quarry.
It sounded like
normal.
it. Yeah, because there's that shot where she comes in with the sun behind her, and they talked about having to wait and they set that up months ahead of time, knowing where the sun would be when they would finally shoot. So there was like a lot of, setting stuff up for the outside shots, and that was a very good shot.
Yeah, I kind of struggled with the performance from the actor playing young Georgiou, because I think she was just trying to emulate Michelle Yeoh's voice, but like the real whispery line delivery.
That's the feeling I got, but it's hard with young actors, so I didn't really hold it against anyone. And she's supposed to be exhausted, so in that regard,
yeah,
that kind of could work.
Yeah, she said it was 2 years in the Terran Hunger Games with her buddy Son, who didn't have the balls to murder his entire family, but she does. So that's what makes her crowned emperor, and Son, as punishment, he becomes like her slave. He's like her permanent slave. So very vicious, very brutal.
Yes, and then she has the He-Man sword here, and that was very
I liked the sword. I liked the
it was a cool
aesthetic.
sword, but the base is just so, not this part at the end, but that part is so He-Man with the flared part before the handle. I don't know.
But I liked the use of the Discovery season 1 Terran armor and stuff. I was like, oh yeah, they're still getting some mileage out of that stuff. So, but any other thoughts on the Terran Empire's opening before we talk about the control exposition dump we get?
No, they do the impressive, fascist thing. As soon as they're crowned, they just beam in tons of troops to stand by them, and they're all just waiting in the ship, ready to be. I can't wait to beam down if they win. And then, yeah.
The Terran Empire, they love their pageantry, but that's true of fascism and
that's
in
par
real
for the
history.
course. It's
I could have used some explanation on why this authoritarian system would select a child ruler like this, though. So I did not really like that idea. But then we get this stylized visual exposition dump, which I didn't think was a very compelling way to deliver all this information. But I guess they wanted to recap who Georgiou was. Was this an effort to be
well? They're trying to sell
friendly?
this to people who didn't watch all of Disco, right? So that was the whole idea.
So we get the
They're
explanation.
trying to get this in front of new eyes.
Yeah, she was.
I thought it was okay.
She was a dictator from another planet who has some history with Section 31 and has disappeared and now has this new alias, Madame de Franck. It was weird to me that they said the most criminal population in recorded history, or they're
That was a
international
weird way to describe them, because they're not criminals in the Terran Empire. That's just par for the course.
Instead of international law, is interdimensional law, but I don't know. I don't know if this was kind of written last minute, or if when they were converting this from a show to a movie, if they're we're not going to have time to explain things, so we're just going to have Jamie Lee Curtis do a voice cameo to get this stuff across to the audience quickly. By the way, I should mention that I watched this for the first time with Dave, and he was like, oh, Michelle Yeoh is good friends with Jamie Lee Curtis. Wouldn't it be crazy if that's her voice we're hearing? And I was like,
I didn't clock that was her from that voiceover.
Yeah, well, Dave did. Dave's a sharp one. Dave, by the way, hated this movie, so sorry to say if people were rooting for him to like it. He did not have a good time.
I'm not
with this.
shocked.
But when we find the Baram is the name of the club, right? Or the name of the space station.
Yep, Bram.
We learned that it's Stardate 1292.4. So according to my calculations, that's the year 2324. There's no like official confirmation on when exactly this takes place. But that's the closest we got, I guess, is going off of the star date. But this is where it kind of concerns me when we have Georgiou running this club under this new alias. And like I was saying, like I was really hoping that she took like that mission from Carl from the Guardian of Forever to heart and was actually trying to be a proactive force for good in this movie. So the whole time I kept like hoping that they were going to reveal that like, oh, she's actually, like helping refugees or like, doing like some Robin Hood type stuff behind the scenes. When they said like she took this over from like the previous owner, but she's instead just like eating eyeballs out of her cocktail and getting high on what was that drug? Okay.
You wrote it down, but I think. Okay, in the chat, what was the name of the dust? That's not what they called it, but
dulcet thistle, I think.
Thistle.
But
Yes,
thistle.
thistle.
Okay. But whatever it is, she has that guy Virgil, who he's an interesting reference from classic Star Trek.
Yeah, it's fun to see. Yeah,
half black, half white. But he's from the species the Charon people, Charon or Charon, however you say it. But they're from Let That Be Your Last Battlefield. But like the whole point of that episode was that like their race war was so terrible it wiped out their entire race. But I guess there's like a few survivors. But I don't know if they're back a few decades later. I kind of feel like that kind of like undercuts the message of
we see
that
one
episode, but.
It makes sense. They were a spacefaring race. They had colonies, I'm sure. They had someone out on weird missions. Someone would survive besides those two. We saw their planet, which was, nothing left. But everyone, yeah. It doesn't bother me at all. It makes sense that he's in, the cantina here on Tattoo. I mean, no, sorry, it wasn't, but...
This is where we meet Alok, our Section 31 Alpha Squad captain. And his plan is to get Georgiou high and try to seduce her and incapacitate her so that his Kamaloid can impersonate her. But she's too smart of a cookie for that. And instead, she's like clocked the entire Section 31 team. So we get that it's very Suicide Squad, the first movie directed by David Ayers, it's
better one.
It's another frustrating thing for me because I kind of wanted this movie to go in the direction of the Suicide Squad, the one directed by James Gunn that I really like, and I was kind of hoping that it might be a little bit similar to that, might be a good way to handle Section 31, but I was disappointed to see like, oh no, it's actually instead much more like the shitty Section 31 movie. So we get this other kind of quick montage of explaining our team. We have the Kamaloid Quasi, we have the Delton Mel, we have the Mech Zeph, the Laughing Vulcan, who's not a Vulcan. I kind of like that reveal with Fuzz. I have some problems with him that I'll get into, and the serious Starfleet human Rachel Garrett. But yeah, I was so disappointed when Georgiou says, well, I'm not feeling motivated to be valuable to anyone but myself. And I know like they do explain later in the movie that like she feels useless. She's a monster who has regrets and therefore feels like she can't do anything. But very disappointing after what I was hoping would be the character's arc after Discovery Season 3.
To me, that doesn't bother me as much, obviously, as it bothers you. Because even if she did deal with a whole bunch, she did. Should she be okay after that? After all the genocide? Should you feel all right about yourself after that? Maybe you should never feel good. I don't know. So I see what you mean, and I don't disregard. And I did like the disco stuff, but maybe that's something that just should come around to people like this over and over again. And maybe they just need to always trying to be doing something. And I always took it, too, that she just got bored. She probably did something nice when she got to this time period, but she got really bored. She worked for Section 31 at first. She got bored. So she decided to do this. She's obviously bored
That's another
here.
good point. We don't know how long she's been in this
exactly.
time period. But I mean, that's
Years.
kind of frustrating to me.
But,
like,
yeah.
The show doesn't, I mean, I'm sorry, the movie doesn't put in any effort to answer many questions or explain very much. So it's kind of like, well, who are they making this for? Is it trying to be just purely like new
Not
audience
us.
friendly? But I don't feel like this is going to be, I don't feel like this is going to, if say you've never watched Star Trek and you watched this and you liked it, I don't think there's like an obvious direction for you to go to. So like where do you go to watch more Star Trek then if this is your gateway into it? It was
Paramount Plus, which has
right, but like
Star
which
Trek.
there's not going to be any like show or anything that's going to be like the same.
Actually, you should go to Netflix and watch Prodigy. It's true, but
yeah, that's the
if you're a newbie.
Okay. I'm glad you brought that up. Prodigy is such like a better example of how to branch outside of the fandom because Prodigy immediately opens. It's not very Star Trek at all. The first few episodes of Prodigy, and it kind of like
it's Star Wars too. Yeah,
it slowly works that into it. But if you watch like the first 2 episodes of Prodigy, it explains like what it's focused on there. It explains Tars Lamora. It explains like those characters. You get a lot more information and world building, and this movie doesn't try to explain things.
Yeah, but if it did try to explain everything, you couldn't do that either. So I mean, you can try somewhat, but
I don't know. I feel like I mean, I guess this does explain one of the questions I had going into this. I wanted to know like who was San, so we finally get that. But
yeah, that was nice. I mean, that's a nice thread they dropped in Disco, so that was always nice. And then I assume all of these, like the picture that's up now of this is part of their main ship, the one that gets blown up later. These are all Disco sets redressed, right? Because there's no way they had money to build all this.
They put up these sets when they were transitioning from the Discovery sets to the Starfleet Academy sets. So
because this one, I mean, I don't know exactly what this one is, but the bridge of San's ship has to be the Disco bridge. It's about the same size. I'm not sure. I haven't read anything about this, but just looking at it, it just seemed to be about the same size, which is, very wide because they get all those cameras to do their stuff in there. And that's just thoughts I had. I'm not sure. Does anyone know?
But when they go into like the interior of the Section 31 ship, we get the kind of like the explanation of what like their plan would have been, what their heist would have been. And I'm really not sure like why did they need Fuzz to hack that guy's implant if they were just gonna like punch him out with Zeph? And then I'm not sure like why they needed Zeph when Alok ends up punching the guy out in one hit later anyways. So but I guess this is redundancies. They're just working with redundancies. But when they introduce Georgiou to everyone, we learn like a little bit more about Fuzz. We find out he's just this little, I don't know, is he supposed to be a bug or a virus controlling this Vulcan robot?
I think he's too big to be a virus, or I think he's like bug sized. I mean, whether you call him an insect, I'm not sure, but
well, he refers to himself as a microbe at some point.
You see the ship come out of the Vulcan eye at the end.
Yeah.
Right? And so that could easily be like a flea in a little ship that's a little bigger than a flea. I don't know. But it was kind of nebulous, but
whatever. He's little. He's a small shite, as he says in his god-awful
small man syndrome. Yeah,
god-awful Irish accent, which was not great. But he's very over the top. I don't know. Like Fuzz was a bit much for me. I did like out of the main group though. I liked Mel. I kind of don't like how they depicted like the Delton sexiness though, of like it's just like it's kind of like the same as like the Orion pheromones that we saw like in action in Enterprise. It's kind of like I kind of was hoping like the Deltons would be something like a little different. But I liked her for the brief time she's in the movie, and I liked Sam Richardson's Cameloid Quasi. The only thing I didn't like about him was I don't like that they made him like some of the like the visuals, and then like how they made him like turn into like the weird spider web thing. I was kind of thinking that Cameloids would
kind of, they look like fungal things.
Yeah, I was hoping that they'd be like a little bit more like limited in their shape shifting, like a Mon in Star Trek Six.
Yeah. But
But I like
he
that
gets almost Murph like in that chase at the end in the tunnels, which
yeah.
was a little unexpected, but not necessarily wrong.
But I kind of pictured Comaloids like they're more like they can maybe like only shapeshift to like other like humanoid creatures. You know, I think I kind of pictured them as being like more limited than like an Odo changeling. But I guess they're
Or
closer to like an Odo changeling.
or the Vendorians who can do like the biobed and all that.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I was kind of hoping. My original theory was like I was thinking Fuzz would either be a traitor or he'd be like the one to die early, and it turned out I was right about him being the traitor, and Mel is the one to die early.
Yeah, you get the feeling that we have all these characters because they were all planned for when this was a show. Because I really you didn't need all of them for sure. You don't need them all, but they're like, oh, there's such great ideas. Let's keep them all. You certainly could condense them down. I mean, it makes sense. Having one die early, that's kind of a standard. But
having Rachel Garrett on the team, I was thinking that maybe this is something that you know I was talking about before when we were doing our Section 31 history recap a couple weeks ago. How you know in season 2 of Discovery it ends with Ash Tyler being put in charge of Section 31 with a promise that it would be more transparent going forward, and then we never see that. But maybe this is the result of that. Maybe you know the movie obviously doesn't try to get into explaining Section 31 at all, but maybe just after Disco season 2, we can headcanon if we want that this is standard operating procedure that Section 31 only operates outside of the Federation on classified missions, and they always have to have a Starfleet observer to make sure that they comply with galactic law or what have you.
Yep.
I didn't like the line from Garrett about how you know I will come down on you with the full weight of Starfleet or whatever. Like I feel like a lot of the scripting for her dialogue was not great.
It didn't make a lot of sense. Yeah.
I heard that she's a good actor in some other stuff though, so I'm not blaming her.
Oh,
I think
I thought she did great. I thought they all did. But the writing for her was kind of strange.
And also with the character Alok, I felt like I think that he had like a lot of good presence, but I felt like his script it was just kind of like cliche, like serious action guy stuff, like don't get dead and stuff like that. That kind of fell flat for me. So this is where we get Georgiou's reaction to their plan about how they plan to capture this arms dealer, Data No, and she says meh, which is how I feel about this movie if it wasn't a Star Trek movie. But she offers them a what she says is a better plan. Oh, like the one thing about like Data No that I think is like almost a good use of the universe is that he's going to sell the super weapon to the Minosians from Arsenal of Freedom in TNG. They were the people who like they wiped out their own population from their love of like deadly weapons. So, but I think that's like almost a good use of the universe because then like he should have been the planet should have been Minos and not Minos Corva, which was a different planet from a different episode of TNG. So
it's hard.
But yeah, we can overlook that. Let's talk about like the actual heist and the fight scene we get with Georgiou. The phase pods that she uses to take the case from Data No. What do you think about that stuff?
These were fun, and these were a good little sci-fi thing. And it was very Star Trek too, because it's like it's one of those things that shows up, it does its cool thing, and then it will never be referenced again, even though it makes them impervious to small arms fire.
I like the idea.
You have to assume they're really rare. Maybe she got them from the other universe too. She might, who knows? She had a little carrying case that was stuck under her uniform, and Carl sent her back. Or maybe Carl forwards luggage. Maybe he's nice that way. Who knows? But yeah, I think it works. And I know immediately people are like, why don't they fall through the floor? Because we've already seen Star Trek, when you're out of phase, the floor still works. Next Generation taught us that.
Yeah,
It's just
Geordi and
simple
Roe.
physics. Simple physics, yeah. Geordi and Roe showed us, of course.
I did have that same concern though when I was watching it, but I excused it. I was like, well, that's kind of the typical rules for like Star Trek sci-fi science. I liked the fight scene though. I liked when it was very predictable, like who it was. Like immediately when I was watching this with Taylor and Dave, I turned to them and I was like, oh, is this San back for revenge? But I thought that the action scene, like the phasey action scene of how they turn like the phase pods on and off and then go through walls and walk in on an Endorian having sex with some other alien. I thought that was that was an interesting new action sequence that we hadn't seen before.
We had full frontal Endorian, but he looks
Yeah.
like a Ken doll, so it's very odd.
Well,
I don't
one
know why
of
they
their
put that in there.
according to the novels, Endorians have 4 genders, which is kind of supported by the show.
Yeah.
Data at one point I think says that Endorians have 4 people involved in a traditional Endorian wedding. So at least one of the Endorian genders, we have like an idea of what their anatomy might be like. But you also get like Zeph running through walls, which I thought his reaction to like, oh,
Kool-Aid Man
aliens,
style,
naked
yeah.
aliens, yeah, that was a little,
Yeah.
yeah, very very Kool-Aid Man, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
But I actually like some of I've heard a lot of people complain about like the choreography and the action sequences, and I think like a lot of the fights were maybe because I've watched like a lot of like cheap kung fu movies. But I
Yeah.
liked Michelle Yeoh doing I think clearly doing most of the stunts herself. Unfortunately, this is when we say goodbye to our Delton, Mel, played by Humberly
Yes.
Gonzalez. I checked out the Trek culture ups and downs video that they did on this, and one of the things that Sean pointed out there was how when Mel is disintegrated by San, when we see her vaporizing, Humberly Gonzalez plays that with like such an angry look on her face. I was like, oh yeah, that is kind of cool and unique. So good on her. But what was going on with when Georgiou got her foot stuck in the wall?
I don't think they ever had something on screen really addressing that. I just assumed so after watching it a bunch, and that the little thing that controlled it, something went wrong with that. Maybe she fell on it, and so it kind of went on and off or something. But they never said. They didn't say. So I don't know. Or maybe they accidentally put some flooring in the wall, and so
Oh yeah, and that's why she couldn't.
that's why I couldn't do it. Like
or maybe
gravitic plate.
she had
I think it's
something
the
in her.
gravitic plates, but
She had something in her shoes to keep her from falling through the floor, but it
Yeah.
malfunctioned and kept her from going through the wall. Maybe.
yep.
I don't know how the case the case that the godsend is in. I don't know how it is kept from going through the floor then, but regardless, San does reveal the godsend. He removes it from the case, and we'll later learn the details on that. But this was, I guess, Georgiou's motivation for the movie. She is like, oh, that's like a thing from my past that I have to deal with. So something I was curious about going into this was what would be Georgiou's motivation. But anything else on the fight or the heist before we talk about the Section 31 safe house?
No, I did see a little interview with someone saying that they didn't really have. I mean, they had stunt people doing choreography, but when it came to Michelle Yeoh, they pretty much let her decide all the stuff because she's Michelle Yeoh, and none of them are, came out of Hong Kong action. So, which makes sense because there's people who can do it that well, like the guy who did Daredevil on Netflix. I think Philip Silvera are that tier level. In addition to like the people they brought in for like Shang-Chi. But yeah, I don't think they could afford any of them for this movie made in Canada. But Michelle Yeoh did a good job. I think that's why all the fights with her are a lot better than the fights amongst the other characters. Are pretty much someone hits someone.
Well, Georgiou is stunned by a lock, but while she's passed out, we get the flashback sequence to the Terran Empire to San presenting, I should say, the godsend to his emperor, her super weapon that we'll learn about. It was basically like a doomsday weapon. If she was ever to be dethroned, she could activate this to wipe out the Empire, so that whoever conquers her would have nothing to rule over. And the engineers who made it were so terrified that they killed themselves, and San seemingly kills himself. We'll later learn that not so dead, but it's not like overtly explained. But I assume that Georgiou, she's so like disturbed by her I guess probably only like real like friend or companion with San, like him seemingly kill himself. I guess that's why she orders this thing destroyed. Turns out it was never destroyed. It was put into storage against her will and her knowledge, and later comes back to haunt her and bite her in the ass. But I assume that's what was going on here. But she wakes up in the Section 31 safe house, and this is where we learn Alok's backstory. He's an augment from the eugenics war.
And not Khan. I was so happy.
Yeah.
It's Geary the Marked and not Khan. So
I think the reason why they had to make it someone other than Khan, though, is just
because we killed him. Yes.
Well, just to explain that, like, he wasn't on the Botany Bay. He might have been on a different sleeper ship. He was somewhere, cryogenically frozen. They never said it was on a sleeper ship, but he said he was asleep most of that time. So
he did say he was on a colony, so he wasn't on Earth. He was on a colony, and then augments come take it over. Maybe he was on a sleeper ship to the colony. Maybe, who knows? But
it's interesting that Section 31 keeps going back to augments or using augments, because we know, like, the very first Section 31 story ever, they're trying to recruit Augment Bashir. They were involved in covering up the Klingon augment experiment in Enterprise. In the Kelvin timeline, they recruit Khan to be part of Section 31. So, but yeah, like Alok is very one note, and I think he might have been like a bit too serious. I wish that they gave this actor some more juicy scripting, but a lot of the scenes with him were just very, very flat, in my opinion.
Yeah, the comic relief was going to other characters, so he didn't get any lines like that, so he was left with just this.
But on this safe house planet, which was shot like next to, it looks like it's like in between the Toronto rock quarry and the Toronto forest that Discovery liked to shoot at.
Yeah.
But the characters stand around in a circle to have a conversation about the godsend, and we get like the explanations on that. So it's kind of that. I know a lot of people like complain about like the galactic ending stakes, or like the super high stakes in modern Star Trek, but we get more of that.
But as an action movie, that's kind of par for the course.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of a lame MacGuffin, though. I kind of wish that they had a better mission in this. But then it's more of like this movie is really, it's just like people stand in circles and talk, and then there's like an action sequence. It's like they stand in a circle like on the ship, and they talk about like their heist plan, and then they have an action sequence. And then Georgiou wakes up on this planet, and the people like stand in a circle and talk, and then they do like an interrogation sequence and some more action.
Yeah.
There's a big explosion. So it kind of like, the movie just kind of toggles back and forth between those two things.
I wonder if that's just set up from one of the ones that are gonna. I don't know if we ever knew how many episodes this was gonna be, but when it was a show, is that just set up for one episode, action beat from that episode, and then it's the next one? I'm unsure, but you feel like there's some of the episodic nature of the original breakdown creeping through. Not sure, but.
And that's what some of the people behind the scenes, like Alex Kurtzman and others, they're saying that this is kind of like all the highlights of what would have been like the season 1 story, I guess. It's interesting that Bowie Kilm and Erica Lapolte were pushed to the side on this. I saw a very good review on this from our friend Jessie Gender on YouTube, and she had a lot of like really good criticism about this movie. And one of the things she was pointing out is how it's unfortunate that they had like these women showrunners, break the story for the show. And by like one of them was an Asian woman, telling the story about like this Asian woman character, and then they're kind of like shoved aside for like this other writer to come take over for like the movie screenplay. But
Yeah, it is the first Star Trek movie with a woman lead too. So
given like some of the reaction to this, like I don't know, maybe Bowie Kim and Erica Lapold are relieved to be kind of distanced from the final product. I wouldn't blame them if they felt that way. But we get the interrogation of Dadano. It's kind of like this middle part of the movie, the second act. It is my favorite part of it. I really like the mystery stuff of figuring out who's the mole. It's the most that I like the movie is in like this middle part. But my least favorite part also, I think, is the interrogation scene. I don't like the Batman Begins thing of like swear to me, of like oh, I'm just gonna like intimidate the shit out of you to get answers. Like I don't really like torture, and when I don't want it in my Star Trek. I don't want it to be something that like heroes are doing. Like when Star Trek shows torture, I want it to be the chain of command. I want to see like Picard being tortured, and it's like, oh, this is such like a terrible, cruel thing. I'm against this. I don't want it to be something that like our heroes do. This kind of redeems Enterprise season 3 for me when we see like Archer torture someone. Is basically like George Bush, Dick Cheney, like waterboarding someone to get information, because like even then in Enterprise that still kind of approached it like this is a questionable thing that Archer is doing. This is a transgression, and here it's just like, oh, look how like wacky and funny it is to punch this guy. Like, oh, I thought she was going to be doing the face punching. So I don't like this scene.
and this was also in the trailer too, so it was like I was already seen this. Yeah, I'd already seen. I knew this was coming, and then so. But it's funny too when we just saw him from behind. I don't know, and you see this sort of metal mohawk. He seemed like such a different character than the one we ended up with.
That was like the first image we got.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it turned out the back of Dadano's head with the metal mohawk, but not really the hard person you think like that. No.
Does that come with fries?
Yeah, that could have been a better joke.
I don't know if that line will exist into the 24th century, but
it's funny in the Terran Empire, just not in our universe.
Well, that is true. He is from a different universe. This is the Dadano from the Mirror universe. So, and we get another exposition dump here, but he explains that the godsend was kept at his storage facility, and that there is the passageway between universes in the Crescent Nebula where ion storms go off regularly and open up a passageway. Not many people know about it, but I thought this was interesting. The Terran Empire has starved itself, and now it needs to expand somewhere else. It has to conquer new territory in order to try to survive.
Yeah, does that mean it's hemmed in by the other alien powers?
Yeah, we know from Deep Space Nine that the Terran Empire falls to the Cardassian Klingon Bajoran alliance.
Yes. So, but that falls still in the future of this timeline. So
yeah, that would be about
that's
when we see
nebulous. I know, but
assuming this is 2324 based on the star date, we see Kira the attendant in the Mirror universe about 45, 50 years after this. So it would be like timeline-wise, it would be like, okay, this would make sense for the Terran Empire to kind of be against the ropes right here.
Yeah.
It makes me sad that like the Mirror Spock in the original series, who said he was going to reform the Terran Empire, that didn't quite work out. And I know it's not canon, but some of the IDW comics have done some really cool Mirror Universe stuff, and they kind of like explain that like, oh, Spock's reforms are actually good, but then like someone else came in and like tore up all the reforms, and then they fell.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna choose the headcanon. That's what happened.
Yeah, it's more comforting.
But it sounds like they didn't know this was going to be Terran Empire stuff when they were trying to recruit Georgiou. They were just there on her station because that's where this weapons deal was going to go down. So kind of convenient that it turns out like, oh, it's also connected to
my
Georgiou,
weapon.
But
it's my MacGuffin.
Yeah. Kind of like that convenient action movie kind of scripting. Maybe if it had been like a 10-episode season of a show, it would have been a bit more organic. But Also convenient that like as soon as Dadano finishes his exposition dump, there's another a big explosion, and he dies before he can give away any more. But
Yes.
I did like the explosion though. I liked the dude running around on fire. Good job,
looked great.
stunt actor. Yeah. It sucks for poor Dadano, but. Other than them like torturing this guy, like they don't really do anything that's questionable, like morally questionable, which surprised me.
This could have been Starfleet intelligence.
Yeah, this didn't have to be Section 31 at all.
It really didn't. Because we've seen Starfleet do things. We've seen them steal Romulan cloaking devices. Stuff happens, but.
But this is one thing Dadano said was like, I don't know that guy who showed up on the station to take the weapon. It was like someone on your team leaked what was going on, and we learned that there's a mole. Someone blew up their ship, stranded them here. So this is my favorite part of the whole thing is trying to figure out who is the mole, and that mystery.
I like how there's a mole and they're on a giant planet with all these tunnels, because that's where moles live.
And it's another thing, like, this movie doesn't want to put an effort to explain anything, because it's like, well, why are there, like, these hover platforms and tunnels and, like, erupting fire pits and stuff on this planet? It's like...
I got that this was a garbage planet. They don't explain it. You're right. They don't explain it at all, but all the flames coming off, I took as, like, outgassing methane from rotting stuff. And that's why there's a garbage scow sitting on this planet, is because... Well, they don't want to throw stuff in the nebula, they throw it here. But again, not really explained.
Because they say that the one thing that they do explain is that the garbage scow that we get to later, it dumps the trash into the nebula, so radiation burns it up. So I guess like the things that like they don't want to burn up, they're gonna recycle. Maybe this is how they separate the trash and the recycling. Like the recycling stuff comes to this planet.
To the planet. Yeah, your explosive, creepy, good guy dolls from the future go in the nebula. So.
Rachel Garrett is the one who discovers the garbage scow on the planet, though, and she's like, "Oh, okay, our ship got blown up, but we can probably go repair this other one." And then when someone compliments her or something, she says she has like that line about like, "If I wanted someone to like me, I'd get a dog." I liked that, but I didn't like. I thought it was kind of awkward, stilted scripting right after that when she says, "I like prediction and conclusion." However, I do find that very I find that very relatable. I don't like unpredictable stuff. I want things to be kind of stick to the script, stick to the plan. I guess that starts her arc of like, oh, you're actually like a little chaos goblin, which I didn't like the chaos goblin stuff. I think they really squandered doing anything of merit with Rachel Garrett.
It's great to hear Michelle Yeoh say the words chaos goblin. That was great. But yeah, I see what you mean. The rest of it, yeah. Though she does sing a little song about loving chaos, and I kind of like that. But when she's going into the garbage, but
this is a little confusing the first time I watched it. But after their ship is destroyed by the mole, who will eventually learn is Fuzz.
Yeah.
But he's also deactivated the communication antenna by removing a critical part, a critical component, the theta junction. And also, we'll later see that the garbage scow has a critical part, the asymptote coil, removed. So I kind of didn't like it doing like that exact same thing twice.
Yeah, twice.
Maybe it's like Disco Season 5 when Raynor says sometimes in battle, enemies inspire each other. So maybe Alok was inspired to remove the asymptote coil after Fuzz removed the theta junction from the communication antenna. But I don't know, this is like really just this movie. It does it's definitely not the only Star Trek to do this, but it does the kind of annoying thing of just making up a convenient technobabble to move the story along. Maybe something they had to do by converting the story from 10 episodes to an hour and a half. But I don't know. Like those things aren't very organic or relatable. A asymptote coil and theta junction. It's very like video gamey to me. Like, oh, you can't use this machine till you find the part, and then you got to like put the part in the machine, and then you can use it to unlock the next part of the game. Is kind of how it felt to me. But
Yeah, if only there was other, established Technobabble you could use, but apparently no. So
but I
maybe
did like
is it trying to be accessible to new people by not using old Technobabble and be a brand new,
yeah, I have to
brave
make up new stuff.
Technobabble that everyone's confused by? So newbies, you're on the same level as the veterans.
I wouldn't really remark on this stuff here with the antenna and the ship, but then the stuff that we get later, the kind of convenient technobabble, I thought was a much bigger transgression. However, I do like at this point in the movie when Georgiou kind of takes charge. It was very reminiscent of how she would kind of step over Leyland in Disco Season 2.
Yeah.
And she's like, okay, we're going to split into 2 teams. And a lot goes along with it because he says, like, well, I'm pretty sure that she's not the mole. But we kind of see the two of them working together to command this team. She decides to split into 2 teams, but Alok is the one who does like the assignment of, okay, Georgiou, Quasi, Fuzz, y'all go to the garbage scow. Zeph, Garrett, y'all stay with me. That's when he says, don't get dead. I thought that was a bit of a cringy line, but
very action.
We find the garbage scout. It looks like it's like in the river that we see in Discovery when Book dumps off the transworms on the Sanctuary planet. But here's some more like scripting, some more dialogue that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. But when Quasi is talking to Georgiou, and I do like their dynamic where like he always gets like really nervous when she's gets close to him or makes like eye contact with him too long. I like that he's uneased by that, and I like how Sam Richardson played all that. But I thought it was so weird that when he's talking about like, oh, in the Terran Empire, you ordered that thing destroyed, and they didn't actually destroy it, and he says, well, your corporate culture was straight up shit. I was like, why the hell is the term corporate culture a thing in the 24th century?
It doesn't even really track onto what he's saying so much. I got what he meant, but yeah, I thought that phrase was kind of weird.
Yeah, the Terran Empire is not a corporation, so
yeah, as terrible as they are, they're not that kind of terrible. Yeah.
But like I was saying, this is my favorite part of the movie, though, with the mole mystery and trying to figure out who is the traitor. And I did notice watching this that Fuzz acts a little weird here when he's kind of like spaced out when they go to look in the cargo bay for the part, and Georgiou says, "Aren't you coming along?" He's like, "Yes, I couldn't be more excited." It's like the only time he's ever been dialed down. He's normally dialed up to 11.
Yeah, he's not obnoxious. He just sort of agrees.
Yeah,
you should have known.
They played fair with like the clues and the mystery and stuff.
Yeah,
But I really like Zeph. I thought he was like pretty likable. So it does make it kind of tragic when he is the victim of Fuzz the mole. But I liked Zeph here when he's on the antenna and he's like, okay, we're all trying to figure out who's the mole. So I'm not gonna help repair the antenna. I'm just gonna stand here and not do anything. I was like, what a great way to try to get out of some work. I respect that, Zeph.
You got a mech suit, but it's only for one thing. It's not for fixing.
But then here, it raises eyebrows when Garrett and Alok just turn around for a split second, and then they turn back around, and Zeph has vanished. So it's like, oh, is he the mole? Is it a red herring? This stuff was like really, it kept me really engaged. The middle part of the movie is like the first part I wasn't super into, the end part I wasn't super into, but it gave me that very enjoyable part, in my opinion, in the middle to keep me invested.
I do like the Garbage Scout too. The sets are really nice. I like the Garbage Scout bridge a lot.
Yeah, and it was a neat design.
And it's different. It's pretty different than the normal Trek stuff.
I liked the Section 31 ship. I thought it looked like, okay, I wouldn't. That it looked inconspicuous. I kind of wish that like the Terran ships, if they looked a little bit more Starfleet, just because traditionally the Mirror Universe has the same Starfleet ships that we have in the Prime Universe.
With more weapons. Yeah.
I would have liked that, but when they do the hunt for Zeph, that's when Georgiou and Alok have that conversation about being a monster with regrets.
Yeah, it was pretty good. The dialogue, I like that.
And Georgiou talks about Geary see, this is one of the lines I don't like from a Locke when he's like, "Oh, Geary died like she lived, and by that you know exactly what I mean." I was like, okay, that's a little, I don't know. It's just
Well, that particular
dull.
line isn't the best, but overall, I liked it. Yeah.
But like her reaction to that when she talks about like, oh, she was lucky she wasn't infected with a conscience, and I guess that's how Georgiou feels about like the guilt that she has gnawing at her. But I'm still disappointed, like I was saying before, that she wasn't doing more proactively good guy stuff after Carl sent her back with like the directive to like, here, you can go be useful. And she's like, oh, I'm just gonna party in my club. But
That's a thing, though. Sci-fi is allergic to showing us to alluding characters did anything when they're not on screen. Just like Picard, when he comes back in the show Picard, he hadn't really been doing much for a while. The same thing with Luke and the other Star franchise, and I don't know. It's just this weird thing of like, if they're off screen, they're just not doing anything. Don't assume they ever did. I don't know.
when they find the dead Zeph, Fuzz starts talking about his 190,000 kids. This is why I think, like, was he supposed to be a bug or supposed to be like a germ? Because like, I thought he looked like bug sized to me, but like he wants to name his kids things like polio and cowpox and influenza.
Germs are asexual, though, right? So bugs,
yeah,
would have mates, but
yeah. So yeah, he does have a wife that he's having these 190,000 kids with.
Yeah. He names two after Trip, though, so I like that.
The evidence planted on Zeph, the strand of Rachel Garrett hair, and then the blood under her fingernails. I thought like all this stuff was like good because like okay, it makes sense that Fuzz would be able to pull all of this off, and it puts the audience in an interesting place, assuming most of the people watching this know that Rachel Garrett is not going to be the killer, but you're kind of like, well, how could it be her? You know, what's actually going on here? Georgiou mentions when Garrett says, "Oh, well, I've had like a lot of close proximity with this guy Zeph." Georgiou points out, well, a lot of humans are into Mecha Boom Boom. Rachel Garrett kind of has like that weird facial reaction to that, and it's like earlier, like she was like awkward talking about Alok connecting with Georgiou at the beginning. So I kind of don't really like that they make Rachel Garrett to be kind of like this this kind of like lame nerd character.
Well, this is pre-holodecks being much of a thing. You know, we have the rec room, but so Starfleet personnel are still kind of uptight then.
But yeah, I don't like it kind of framing like Starfleet as like, oh, well, look how look how like awkward and lame they are compared to us cool, Section 31 people who don't care about, breaking rules, but whatever. I typically am not like the person who's like, you have to be so respectful to the like she was a captain of the Enterprise C, damn it. I have no problem with Admiral Clancy telling Picard the sheer fucking hubris, in Picard season 1. I like that scene actually. So I'm not someone who like puts like these Starfleet characters up on a pedestal, but for some reason I still found this movie kind of like disrespectful of Rachel Garrett. But Georgiou says deep down she's a little chaos goblin, which I don't know. Maybe I haven't heard from anyone who like likes that storyline. But if someone does, like, let me know, because maybe it does work for someone. But I don't know. This is not what I wanted with Rachel Garrett. I didn't like what they did.
Maybe it's just a Warhammer reference. Who knows?
Or there's a thing, chaos goblins and Warhammer.
There's a whole chaos section. There's chaos gods that control chaos space marines, and then I don't know. There's orcs, and then there's everything. There's a whole chaos thing.
I need to. I'm going to do two things here. I'm going to compliment the props, and I'm also going to complain about the props. But speaking of Rachel Garrett, I loved her Starfleet phaser. It looked like a halfway between some of the Star Trek movie, like the TOS movie phasers. I know like those changed from movie to movie, but it looks like something like halfway between like a Star Trek 2 or 3 phaser and a TNG Dustbuster phaser from the first season. I like that a lot. What I didn't like is their tricorders are just all like modern day smartphones. I know like they do that on
Yeah.
Picard, but at least on Picard they get like those Samsung flip phones and have a
Yeah.
little bit more tricordery case around them. But I like Section 31 tricorders in the early 24th century are pretty lame for just looking like straight up smartphones. But that is how they recover the footage from dead Zeph that proves Garrett was innocent and Zeph seemingly killed himself, and then Georgiou pieces the clues together. But they did lay the groundwork for this. They showed us that Fuzz can infiltrate implants, and
Yep.
he was spaced out earlier. He must have had like an autopilot for the Vulcan conveyance. And by the way, though. I do like this murder mystery. I'm giving the movie a compliment there. But like the fact that like Fuzz is a very emotional creature piloting a Vulcan, why the hell wouldn't you just modify the ears on that Vulcan and
Cut
make
the
it
ears
not look
off,
like a
yeah.
Vulcan anymore? That seemed obviously silly and stupid to me.
Because the antenna are in the ears, and you can't modify them. So
I was thinking that maybe
I
maybe like scans would show him as like an actual like living breathing Vulcan,
Okay.
and so they wanted to keep a Vulcan look on it.
Keep
That's the
that,
only thing I
yeah.
can think of.
I like the implied teamwork though they have, because they somehow brought Zeph's body back. That would've
Yeah,
taken
I
them
guess
all.
someone had to carry the body there, so
And his mech suit too.
probably a heavy bloke with all of that armor and gear attached to him. I know that the actor said that playing Zeph, the suit would weigh 50 pounds in the morning, but then he would sweat so much that by the time they were done shooting, it would be like 60 or 65 pounds from all of his sweat. I don't know if that's
Wow.
true or not, but
It would feel like that, I'm sure.
I'm sure it was a laborious job to do that. But this is when we get the Fuzz chase action sequence. So and his
Yep.
escape. But what do you think of this? It's very like Temple of Doom to me.
Yeah, in the tunnels, the mine carts. Yeah, it was fun. I like the enclosed, and then they can ram each other, and there's interesting things they can do with that, and it works. And then at the end, they like fly out and they're outside, and then that reminded me of episode 3 because they didn't quite do acrobatics on them, but
oh yeah, they weren't like swinging around like Tarzan with their lightsabers, but I guess this is the end of Zeph. He's like his dead body, which that's also like so gruesome that like Fuzz is like continuing to pilot the exoskeleton. I liked that though. I thought it was like a good use of his abilities and made him a dangerous foe for these characters. But his body is tossed overboard. We see I didn't like it, but like the quasi spider web thing to save a lock. Not a big deal though. I can get it. It's just like, oh, cameloids aren't like how I thought they were for the last 30 years. Not that big of a deal. But the platform going up high, Georgiou stabbing the Fuzz robot, and then Fuzz turns around to give some more information to her and to the audience, but it's actually San. San is the person that he is working with to use the godsend to weaken the Federation, so that the incoming Terran army can conquer the weakened, or mostly just it's where they are in like a galactic map of the Star Trek galaxy. Is kind of close to like Cardassian space, kind of close to like where Deep Space Nine was. It's like if they set off the godsend there, it looks like it would like maybe the Federation kind of is like half of the Alpha Quadrant, half of the Beta Quadrant. So maybe it would just like knock out like that left half of the Federation, and then it'd be easy for the Empire to come march over the rest of it. I think I think that must have been the plan. But like I keep saying, this movie doesn't put any time or effort into getting into the weeds of explaining much of anything.
No.
So,
but everyone is so sure. Multiple people stab this robot and think he's done. I'm just like, but it's a robot. I don't know why you think he doesn't have vital organs. Just stabbing his eye later, would that work? I don't know. But they have faith in their stabbing.
San, I think San is a bit of a bland character and a bland villain, but he's a nice bad guy to work for. I mean, like if he's hired you to be the mole on the team, you know, he'll beam you up, he'll come
Yeah.
rescue you, he'll repair your robot suit. So
You'll put
maybe
up
he
with
would
you.
have.
He
I,
puts
I
up
can
with
see.
Fuzz.
I agree with Georgiou that there's no such thing as a benevolent dictator, but I can see why San maybe thinks that he would be the, you know, he believes he's drinking his own Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
He believes that he
Yeah.
would be the righteous mercy or whatever. We see a bit of that here. What do you think of his ship? I heard Trek culture call this the origami La Serena, and I think that's kind of a fair description. But what do you think of it?
I liked it. Yeah, it is very different. It's not an equivalent of Starfleet ship or another ship that we see in regular Prime universe. But I liked it. It was, I don't know, something you make if you have an empire and it's your personal ship, I guess. I don't know. It worked. It looks imposing. It's all pointy and jagged, like bad guy ships usually are.
I like the
And
Tron lighting.
Yeah, it is. I also like later too that it's skipping ahead a bit, but when San fights Georgiou, there's the little imperial crest of the Terran Empire behind him with a sword, but it actually is a sword because he grabs it later. It's just like, oh, that's not just a painting. That's
It's like Chekhov's
I like
sword
that.
because
Yeah.
it's
It's
not
the
like
same
gun
kind
on
of
the wall.
sword that Georgiou had in the beginning too. I don't know if it's the same one, but it's the same shape. So
But yeah, like he attacks her face with like the same style
kind of
sword that
Yep.
that she attacked his face with. So, and I like the line that he says that he wants Georgiou to marinate in her own defeat, because that kind of explains he could have just killed her then when he beams up Fuzz on from the planet.
Yeah.
The thing I'm not sure about is he must. I'm gonna try to help the movie out and fix something in it that's not explained. But when we see the Godsend activated later, it's kind of triggered prematurely on accident by Georgiou and San when they're fighting and bump into it. But it seems to respond to Giorgio's biosignature.
Yeah.
But he must have a way to like hack that and activate it himself because
Yeah.
he doesn't abduct her also here. He doesn't need her to activate it. Apparently, or maybe he's just like really dumb and hadn't thought of that. But I'm just gonna assume that he did have a way to do that on his own.
Or maybe those engineers didn't kill themselves. We only hear San tell Giorgio that.
That is true.
We already know he was already lying and faking his poisoning. So maybe
Yes.
those engineers didn't kill themselves and instead had a way for him to activate it or themselves or later
I like
they
that.
figured it out.
Maybe there was like a conspiracy. San was like, I'm gonna like fake my death, and then if she orders this destroyed, I'm not sure how he would know that, but just say that he did. Then they're like, we'll actually take it into hiding, and one day we can use this against her. Maybe that was the plot.
Yeah.
We should also bring up the weird thing about San's age. I've heard a lot of people talk about this, but assuming he has like the same O as Giorgio and this movie is in 2324, he would be like in his 120s. So
People say that, but it doesn't bother me. We saw McCoy and Connor at Farpoint, and what was he, 170?
he was 150, I believe.
50?
Thereabouts.
So yeah, and if you're an empire, you're in the Imperial Empire and filthy rich, there's got to be like weird, who knows? We've seen things that can de-age you in Star Trek, so he could have access to all that.
Oh, he did the transporter. He did like the Pulaski de-age on the transporter thing.
Or the Insurrection Planet. They go there early and,
Yeah, maybe he's been there.
yeah. Maybe he who knows? He killed them all. And
That's the thing, though. There are so many easy ways to explain that in the Star Trek universe, but yet the movie doesn't choose to do any explanation. It's just like, we're just gonna ignore that and hope the audience doesn't care, doesn't question it. So,
but he does dress more like San dresses more like Sloane in Deep Space Nine than anyone in Section 31 in this movie. So.
Yeah. Well, a lot kind of has like the all black look. He's got like that metal plated thing to give it a little bit more flair, I guess. But with San and Fuzz, with the godsend and en route to the passageway to the mirror universe. The rest of the team back on the planet have to get in the garbage scow and pursue them. So we get like our big climactic space battle. This is when Alok reveals that he had the asymptote coil from the ship all along. So I liked that Georgiou called him an asshole in reaction to that. I thought that was kind of fun. But
they're using that PG-13. That's right.
it is a little weird to me that they're a little lazy to me that the ship and the antenna were both disabled the same way, but it's like a character secretly pulling out a part when no one is looking. But whatever, they get the garbage scow flying. I like that they're on a ship with no weapons, and this is one of the few things that I think is kind of like fresh and new. But like they have to fight with their tractor beam. That was a good thing for Star Trek to do, is like weaponized tractor beam action. That's your only option. And it is a good design. I like it, but
it does kind of have those little plasma ball things you put your hand on, and then the plasma.
Oh yeah, those orbs,
thing.
Those orbs that were big at like Spencer's
in the 90s.
In the 90s. Yeah, or kind of like the thing above like a Borg regeneration alcove that has like the green lightning.
The round thing.
It's the same effect.
Yeah.
So, but their plan, they approach the Crescent Nebula. Is this the same nebula that the garbage scow is normally?
I took that it was, because they have that one line about how normally they throw the garbage into the nebula and the radiation breaks down the nasty stuff.
So
I assume, there's the garbage. What I assumed is the garbage planet next to the Crescent Nebula, which has garbage annihilating radiation, because it's the garbage district.
You know, they do seem to catch up to San's ship pretty quickly, but. So their objective is to drag his ship into the nebula so the radiation takes out the shields of both ships, allowing Georgiou and Alok to beam over to the ship. So they pull that off, and then we get two action fights. We get San versus Georgiou, and we get the fuzz robot versus Alok. And this is also when Georgiou accidentally activates the godsend when they're fighting. They knock it over, and it starts its countdown. So we get like the dramatic, ticking clock. It's like the scimitar at the end of Nemesis, or it's like the Genesis device in Wrath of Khan. We got this thing counting down to blow up.
It starts to go full Hellraiser Lament configuration and rearranging itself, and very suspenseful.
But also, but Georgiou gave that advice to Rachel Garrett about just make out with chaos a little bit, and Garrett says chaos is my friend with benefits, which I did not like that scripting. But when
she's trying not to be such a stuffy Starfleet, she's trying to grow. I don't know if it worked, but
when Fuzz comes over in his shuttle, which I did see some people online, by the way, complain about like the action scene on the planet, like the hover cart chase through the tunnels, and said that was kind of hard to follow. I didn't have any problem with that. I did kind of think that it wasn't real clear with like Fuzz's shuttle and what's going on with it, but it kamikazes their scow to knock out the tractor beams, and then their only way to fight back is Rachel Garrett, because she's embraced her inner chaos goblin. She's learned to be friends with benefits with chaos, and now through a whole lot of Star Trek convenient technobabble, is able to dig around in the trash and then find something that will blow up Fuzz, and just make up like a bunch of like Star Trek science words. Again, this isn't the only time Star Trek has done this, but it is a pretty egregious use of this convenience. The Droom tech in the tour. So we learned about, this new alien race called the Droom. They use a power source called terrenium,
which are worse than lithium batteries because they're even splodier, and
it's gonna cause conveniently cause like a massive explosion to defeat Fuzz, but also conveniently it's not gonna hurt their ship because let's hope that the hull is enforced by Tomahite, whatever that is. So yeah, this is just make up like 3 new. There's got to be 3 new memory alpha entries now cover all this with the Droom and the Terrenium and the
One for the doll, too.
Tomahite,
There's got to be one for the doll. And the
what's
doll
going on
has
with
weird
this?
dialogue. They got to list that on Memory Alpha. So.
Yeah, the doll, it's like we can be friends forever, but then it's also like we're all gonna die. So like,
The
is this
doll
thing
is
like
prophetic.
aware?
Yeah, I think it is. The Great Koala speaks through the doll.
I guess Rachel Garrett is just that good of a science officer that she was able to just
You take
maybe
the
this stuff
batteries.
is, it's really hard to get it to blow up, but like she was she just is so good she can just make Guyver whatever tech they need out of any pile of trash.
I know it was science because it foamed. It's always a sign of
she's
science.
using chemistry when she's like pouring liquids onto the battery or whatever. So, and then I did like the thing that they set up with Quasi earlier, that like he's not just a shapeshifter, but he's this really smart guy. And then sometimes he can think of so many different options at the same time that his brain freezes. And so
that's like goes. We didn't mention that from the beginning when they introduced him in that montage. The glio cluster thing, I was very unsure what that was because I tried to look that up. It's made up. It's not a real thing.
Yeah,
That's his philosophy and way of thinking, and not. It didn't seem to be a cameloid thing. Like, I don't know, because why did it have a different name if it was? But that was confusing. But that's what I took this was. He sees options and then he can compartmentalize and try to go after them.
He gets decision paralysis, which I also find really relatable. Like that happens to me a lot when like I think of too many options and then I end up like I can't commit to any of them. So, and I think I could also
in there. Yeah.
I don't like the way they present it, but maybe if it was a 10 episode season of a show, I could relate to the Rachel Garrett has like this desire for like order and structure, but every now and then she needs to go a little chaotic. Maybe I would find that relatable if it could be presented in a more like organic, better scripted story. But I thought this was unfortunately, I gotta say, like I thought this was kind of dumb when he's like, oh well, I have two buttons, one of them will be self-destruct, one of them will open the cargo bay, and I can't decide which one to push. But 50-50 shot, Rachel Garrett says just pick one, and they do, and then that's okay. I mean, the other dumb thing here is like they talk about, they mention a couple times how the ship has no weapons, and then when Fuzz's shuttle comes over, Rachel Garrett says, oh, get me a missile lock or something. It's like, why do they make her dumb? Like, she should know that like the ship doesn't have weapons. Like the
Starfleet training is so ingrained that I don't know. They don't say.
Well, if she's just defaulting to the Starfleet script, then she should have said, "Get me a torpedo lock." So
yeah, maybe that's why she got sentenced to Section 31. If she screws that up, I don't know. Stop saying missile, or we'll sentence you to Section 31. I do like though when Fuzz is in a shuttle. That means he's in a shuttle that's also in a shuttle. So he's got two layers of shuttle.
He's like the Russian doll of
which you would need because his little shuttle can't go all the way there. So it makes sense.
Ships within ships.
It is plans within plans.
We get the big explosion, and that's the last we see of Fuzz. Does he survive? We don't know. Maybe that story will be told someday.
Keep watching the movie, and maybe he will.
But that's not the only explosion we get. There's a big one coming up. We get like our big climax in the final scene when they blow up the passageway. But they get there by the Georgiou San fight. At some point, she tries to like stop fighting and hug him, which I thought was interesting. But I liked the choreography here of this fight. I've heard some people say that it goes on too long, and I can understand that. But I liked her.
It wasn't super long. I've seen longer. This wasn't They Live. It ended. It was fine.
But I liked the physical blocking of it of Georgiou using her leg to try to like hold up San and stop him from stabbing her in the face. And then the cool move of kicking the sword into his neck and axe. This is an interesting thing because I was talking about how like Section 31 really doesn't do anything too like unethical or too what we would think of as classically like Section 31-ish in this. They don't kill anyone except like here, like Georgiou like kills San, but it's framed so purely out of self-defense.
And it's instantly regret it.
it's instantly regretted, but it was also like oh yeah, like she didn't really have like any other option than to like kick the sword into his neck. So I thought that was interesting. But they are two but one again, I guess. One last time as he dies in her arms. And I kind of liked it. It did feel like a little forced, kind of the chemistry between Alok and Georgiou. I think the movie does want us to read like some like they have some like attraction to each other. But I like that they kind of bond over this moment of like, oh yeah, we both like hate ourselves and we're ready to die. We're ready to blow up on this kamikaze mission to stop the invading Terran army. We're gonna blow up in the passageway. So I guess if you detonate the godsend inside of this ion storm, it's not actually
going to go out.
Yeah, it's not gonna knock out planet after planet. Annoying that they never explain anything about like the godsend, about like why would this even be possible? How could this work? Why does it work?
Yeah.
But for the umpteenth time, for the 47th time, this movie does not put in the time or effort to explain much of anything. But they're beamed out by Quasi and Rachel Garrett, and this is confusing to me. Like when they get back to the garbage scow ship after the explosion, Garrett is the one like knocked out on the floor. I don't know if there's like some deleted scenes in this movie. I wonder if there was like at some point like a longer cut of this and they trimmed it down to an hour and a half, and that's why they had to do some of the weird exposition. I mean, like there were never like any reshoots or anything that we know of. So I think it would all just be like edited of whatever they shot back in February last year.
I'm sure there was ADR would be it, so they would be the only option.
But yeah, Rachel Garrett knocked out on the floor, and then when they pull her up and she's like all happy and hugging Georgiou, we get the line that like perkiness is disgusting. Just like one final like jab at Rachel Garrett.
Starfleet.
Like, yeah, you lame Starfleet nerd. We're not happy. We're not happy when we survive the big explosion. We got to be cool and serious about it.
We were just wishing we were dead. We weren't perky.
Yeah. Like what? We were ready to die. Why did y'all beam us? Why did y'all beam us over?
Yeah, they do the semi. You didn't think it would happen, but they do the fake out where you weren't sure. So.
I was actually curious. I was like, oh, is this like Michelle Yeoh's like final? Like she wanted this to be like her final appearance as Georgiou? Like,
I honestly wouldn't. It would have still worked.
Yeah. I was thinking like maybe she is gonna blow up, but then she didn't, and you know they clearly wanted this to be open to sequels.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that. We get the final scene 3 of y'all's Earth weeks later, but we're back on the Baram, and I like this. I like this scene of what appears to be Alok approaching Georgiou. Yeah. But I like the way that I'm trying to remember the actor's name. Oh, Omari Hardwick, right, as Alok. But here he's playing Quasi, but like I like the way that he was he did do like that kind of like a nervous reaction when Georgiou got too close to him, and gave it away that he was Quasi. So good job, Omari, with the acting there. I liked that. So I think that guy just needed like some better scripting also the other interesting thing in dialogue is that Virgil is back in this scene, and when he says Madame de Franck to Georgiou, he does like air quotes. So it's like, did he not know that she was this other person, this other alias from the Mirror Universe, and like because of the Section 31 mission, he learned that like she's not actually named Madame de Franck?
I assume he always knew, just that now he can do that because he knows everyone at the table knows.
And was that?
But that's not on screen. But.
Michelle Yeoh lives in Paris, right?
I don't remember.
I believe she did, or at least that she used to. So I wonder if she's like a bit of a Francophile, and she wanted like some French added to this movie.
Or is that just from the Canadianness of the shoots?
Oh yeah, it could be.
They're not too far from Quebec. It's Ontario, but it's not that far. I didn't know.
But we see Rachel Garrett in a maroon dress, not a monster maroon uniform, but we get the maroon dress.
I really wanted one monster maroon shot, to be fair.
Yeah. And I heard
just what all they had to do is to just do the other Star franchise thing, borrow one from the fans if you don't want to pay for it, because God knows those things are intricate, but it would have been nice.
Rachel in the live audience, not to be confused with Rachel Garrett in the show, but our Rachel of Tex-Trek is saying that Michelle Yeoh's husband is French, so I guess that's why she lives in Paris. But the final conversation at the end, we learned that Garrett has been promoted to lieutenant commander, and I don't know. I think like this conversation also like fell flat for me. Let's all make jokes about how Georgiou's a bad bitch who might kill all of us, and she kills so many people, and even though like not in this movie, but like let's joke about like her genocidal past. And then we get the Jamie Lee Curtis before the Jamie Lee Curtis cameo, we see that Fuzz is not Fuzz, but another Vulcan conveyance with another terrible accent. We went from a god awful Irish accent to not as disturbing, but still not believable Southern accent for Wisp, the wife of Fuzz.
Yes. But Star Trek doesn't have a history of doing bad things, just terrible Southern accents. Not a little bit, but not to the extent of the Irish. So,
but is the plan, if they're going to make more Section 31, or were they thinking that they would just bring this actor back as a bunch of different creatures piloting these machines, and like everyone would have a different accent? Like he has 190,000 kids, so if they made a sequel to this, they could kill the wife and then have like one of the kids have like a, I don't know, let's go with a German accent after that.
There you go.
But not a good German accent. It has to be like a shitty one.
But not the actor's South African accent. Above all, never use that. So I mean, so he's natively South African, and he's doing all these accents, and so with very little time to learn them, I'm sure. So he's trying.
But we have that Jamie Lee Curtis cameo at the end where she is Control. So whatever. So I assume like after the destruction of the Control AI a few decades earlier, I guess then like Control is like a person. We see like some metal plating on her head, so I'm assuming that she's like has some augmentations like Zeph and like Data Know, and she's like connected to their, I don't know, like their communication network or their computer system or something. I don't like that, like the Section 31 visual stuff, how it always has like the Starfleet Delta, because like I don't like Section 31 being something that's like sanctioned by Starfleet, but I just assume
they stole it from Starfleet. It's contraband. I don't know. Well, they don't say that either.
If this is like the post like Ash Tyler reform after the end of Disco season 2, and they are operating, kind of like with there's always like a Starfleet supervisor like Rachel Garrett present, which is I think going to be like my headcanon going forward until something tells me otherwise. I guess like maybe they're also using like the Starfleet communication network or whatever, but I don't know. I don't like it. I want them to be separate things. I want Starfleet and Section 31 to be very different. And I want Section 31 to be the bad guys, and but nothing in this movie breaks like I was saying, like breaks like continuity.
No, it doesn't.
Nothing in it really betrays the Star Trek ethos. Doesn't offer much. I think it would have been so easy to do like a cool, moral quandary type of a more challenging story. And this movie definitely doesn't. If anything, it kind of plays everything safe, to be honest.
Yeah, but it does sort of, with the weird sort of cursed production history. It was going to be a TV show a long time ago, and then COVID, and then it was cut down. Actor strike.
Michelle Yeoh being too busy.
Getting an Oscar, but still being nice enough to come back and do it, which she did not need to do. So, This could have been a lot worse, whatever anyone thinks,
Yeah.
in multitudes of ways.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna sum it up. I think I might have said this earlier, but it's not much to like, but also like not much to hate. Jill in the live audience is saying that that it was very boring, and I can certainly understand that.
There are things to like shout out to Gersha Phillips, who did all the costumes, which were amazing. Like all the ones in the Baram, in the fancy stuff, all the aliens, it all looks so good. Georgiou's outfits, which she looks amazing and everything. And not having a Monster Maroon was my complaint, but not because that's the only costuming thing, and that was a choice. It had nothing to do with she couldn't do it or something.
The last line is about a mission to Turkana 4, and they kind of joke about it, like, "Oh, your mama 4 or whatever," which is interesting to joke about the planet. No, that's the planet that Tasha Yar grew up on.
I noticed that.
So, isn't that funny to talk about like the rape gang planet? But questionable taste ending the movie on that note, and then we see the Baram and all the ships around it go to warp, because I think just wanted something visually interesting to be like the last shot of the movie. Nowhere in the story does this space station seem to be like mobile or roaming, but maybe it is. I guess it is on screen, so I guess it is. But with the dust settled on this movie, I do want to just circle back to a couple weeks ago when we were talking about the history of Section 31 on screen in Star Trek, and I think this new context. This is what I take away from the movie. It doesn't really offer us much. Doesn't really give us much about any. It doesn't use much from the Star Trek universe. Or it doesn't like leave much behind. It clearly like did not care about being connected to this larger universe. But the way that I'm going to view Section 31 going forward, the timeline in my head, Star Trek Enterprise, we see like the secret organization existed before the founding of Starfleet, pre-Enterprise, but they were operating like during Enterprise. The Federation forms, the Klingon War happens in the 2250s, and that's when I believe Section 31 is officially brought into Starfleet. They do like the weird experimental Discovery spore drive ship, and then after the war they have Section 31 has its own base, has like admirals dedicated to Section 31, but we see like control get out of control get out of hand. So then after that, Ash Tyler is put in charge of Section 31. It's still, I'm going to assume kept very classified. Only some Starfleet officers know about it. And we have people like Rachel Garrett here, making sure that Section 31 isn't doing things that are illegal or immoral. And then at some point after this movie and before Deep Space Nine, Section 31 cuts itself loose and it goes back to being off the books, like Sloan in Deep Space Nine saying, "We do not ask for permission, we do not report back." And then during the Dominion War, I think 31 is folded into Starfleet intelligence in a more official way. They're doing weird genetic experiments on changelings and coming up with the changeling virus and all that stuff during the Dominion War. After the Dominion War, Section 31 is public knowledge, and that's why Boimler talks about them in Lower Decks. That's why the Ferengi that Worf beheads and Picard knew about Section 31. And what I'm hoping for, though, as someone who's always cheerleading for Section 31 to be presented as the bad guys, as the villains, I think I don't really want a sequel to this movie. Instead, what I want is some story set post Star Trek Picard that talks about Section 31 being the bad guys and that they need to be defeated and brought down once and for all. That's the use of Section 31 that I hope that we return to. I think that given I don't know how well this movie is performing, like as far as like on the streaming platform, but it seems to be very unpopular with critics, both like within the fan base and out of the fan base. I saw it currently has a 19% on Rotten Tomatoes. So I'm hoping that if Paramount takes anything away from this, I hope my fear is that they're going to be like, well, this is unpopular. Let's never make a made for streaming movie again. But my hope is that they're saying like, oh, people don't want Section 31 to be good guys. Let's never do that again. And that we can get them back to being the bad guys. Like, I think they probably always should have been. But I'll stop. That was a long rant. Joel, you have any final thoughts on the movie now?
I think you summed it up about Section 31, and as far as the movie, I think we covered it all. So it did not do Section 31 the way I was really worried. So that was good, and then it was basically kind of a generic-y action thing, which they're attempting to get eyeballs over to Trek that like that stuff and didn't just dive into Disco or any of the other series, and I don't know how well it's going to do about that, but they tried, and they did make a show that wasn't centered on Starfleet personnel on a ship, and I know a lot of people have asked for that, and for better or worse, we got it. It's probably not the best way or what people wanted, but I just don't think it's this horrible thing everyone who is having to bring out the old, thing. It's not Trek at all. Or I don't know. It all tires me when people say stuff like that. But you don't have to like it, and I get that. But I think it's in the middle. It's okay.
Yeah, I was relieved watching this because I was worried, like, oh no, is this gonna violate the morals of Star Trek? Is this gonna break the continuity? And it didn't do either. It's only like the worst crime for this movie, in my opinion, is like it wasn't thoughtful. It was just I feel like the movie honestly wanted to be like, don't think about this too hard, just turn your brain off and have fun. Which if that's what you want, cool. If you enjoy it in that capacity, cool. For me, I don't want Star Trek to be that thoughtless. And if this was just like a generic, made for streaming sci-fi movie, I would just be like, oh yeah, this is meh, it's okay, I'm neutral on it. I will say, I will come down on it and say, like, I do dislike it because it's not what I want from Star Trek. I do want Star Trek to be a little bit more, just more heady. I want it, I'm not asking for much, as be like at least as thoughtful as like the Kelvin movies, what I called popcorn Trek, like I was saying earlier, but,
I did run the number. Yeah. Well, sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, I was prepared to go into this movie thinking like this will be my least favorite Star Trek show or movie, and I think it definitely is, like, of all the modern Star Trek it is, but I'm okay with it. I mean, like, it's still like it doesn't do anything that like offends me or that I despise. I feel weird about like the torture scene, but that was tame, just like presented in like kind of like a very like, I don't know, pop way that like I don't know about forgive it, but I can accept it. But yeah.
I did get a calculator out and figure out how much Star Trek this is, and it's like less than like 0.3% of Star Trek with the amount we have now. So it's like, if you don't like it, that's fine. And but I don't know how that can ruin anything. Yeah. So maybe we got new eyeballs, but maybe Georgiou ate those new eyeballs. So it's up in the air where that's going to land. Nobody knows that yet. And
well, I don't think this is going to be the olive branch to the mainstream that a lot of people think it will be. If that was the plan behind it. But I don't know. I think it's very unlikely to get a sequel, just given the critical reaction. I think that they won't. I think that they will. It has like the most negative reaction of anything on Rotten Tomatoes, I guess, if it's at 19%. Like no other show or movie scores that low. So, if they're worried about like the like that having an impact on, and I mean, and I don't think like a made for streaming movie. I think they probably have to do like super well to get someone to be like, oh, let's spend a lot of money to make more of that. So.
That's too bad, because I really would have loved if they could have done lots of different streaming movies.
Agreed. Like I would like
they might have shot themselves in the foot there, but.
And just for the record, I want Paramount Plus to make more made for streaming movies like this, and we're at like an interesting time with Paramount Plus with the Skydance merger happening, and It sounds like Alex Kurtzman is they're kind of fast tracking Starfleet Academy season 2. Like they're going to start shooting in a few months by the middle of this year, which is around the time that the Skydance people should be like taking over control. So it's like they're trying to, spend the money now before the new bosses can tell them to stop anything. But I'm not sure if this will be something that we'll see more of anytime soon with the made for streaming experiment. But we still have another season of Strange New Worlds due this year. They're about to start production on season 4 of Strange New Worlds. I think they're going to start shooting in March. So just weeks away, honestly. So we're getting at least 2 more seasons of Strange New Worlds, at least 2 seasons of the Academy. And then after that, it's going to be whatever the Skydance bosses want there to be. But I don't think Section 31 sequels are likely. Perhaps another made-for-streaming movie. It's going to be... If something doesn't get greenlit in the next few months, then I think it might be a long wait. So, I don't know.
Yeah.
Give us a Prodigy movie. Give us a Lower Decks movie. Give us a post-Picard movie with Captain 7. Those are the things I want to see.
Yeah. We need something else in the pipeline. And I know they're working on other things that they can't really talk about. And, there's Tawny's other show, which they said...
Yeah.
There's something
people
about
who want stuff like outside of the Federation, away from Starfleet.
There we go.
That Tawny Newsome show. So, and I would like that more than the Section 31 stuff. But
I have more faith in that. But
I think that's all we got.
I think so.
I know that was a long show, but we had a lot to talk about with it being a full-length movie. But thanks everyone who stuck around. Just a reminder, no show next week, but join the Tex-Trek Discord server. There's links wherever you're watching or listening to this. Check the description. There's a link to the Discord server. We might do something fun in there Friday, but I'm going to be moving over the next few days, so we'll see how smoothly that goes. But
I hope Amos takes it well.
He actually does better at Taylor's house than he does.
Okay. So don't worry then.
But if anyone wants to buy a condo in North Austin, let me know. I'll be trying to sell this place soon. Is the plan. But in 2 weeks, speaking of Taylor, we will have the Tex-Trek Valentine's Day special, and then we'll have some more shows with her talking about her thoughts on her first time watching the Berman era of Star Trek and completing it, and her reaction to watching all of modern Star Trek and finishing that. So tune in for that stuff. Fun. And we'll leave y'all with that. But until next time, as always, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek. And follow Fatheree on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.